Every June, millions of gardeners unknowingly make a mistake that costs them weeks of harvests. They stop planting. What most people don't realize is that some crops actually grow better when planted in June than they do in spring. In fact, one crop on this list can produce months of harvest from a single square foot. Here are 13 crops you'll never regret planting in June. A few of these are obvious. Several will completely surprise you. And the crop at number 1 is the one most home gardeners overlook year after year, even though it can deliver one of the biggest returns from the smallest amount of space. So don't miss that one. Let's get started. Number 13, zucchini and summer squash. A lot of gardeners think they missed their chance if they didn't plant squash in May. Actually, June is one of the best times to plant it. Squash loves warm soil, and once temperatures rise, these plants grow at an almost ridiculous pace. In as little as 40 to 60 days, you can go from seed to harvest. The biggest mistake? Starting them indoors. Squash hates having its roots disturbed. Direct sow the seeds into warm soil. Keep them watered, and they'll usually outperform transplants. Here's an even smarter move. Plant one batch now, then another in late June or early July. That second planting often avoids the worst wave of squash vine borers, the pest that destroys countless squash plants every summer. The result? Healthier plants and harvests that keep coming long after most gardeners think the season is winding down. And believe it or not, the next crop on this list grows even faster once June heat arrives. Number 12, sweet corn. Most gardeners rush to plant corn in spring. The problem? Corn hates cold soil. Plant corn too early, and you can lose weeks of growth before the seeds even emerge. June-planted corn doesn't have that problem. Warm soil triggers fast germination, rapid growth, and for many varieties, fresh ears in as little as 60 to 75 days. But timing isn't what ruins most corn harvests. Spacing is. Many beginners plant corn in one long row and end up with ears full of missing kernels. Why? Corn relies on wind pollination. A single row lets too much pollen drift away. Instead, plant corn in a block of short rows. That keeps pollen where it belongs and produces fuller, sweeter ears. One small change, a dramatically better harvest. And the next crop might be the easiest thing on this entire list to grow successfully from seed. Number 11, green beans. If you're new to gardening, this may be the most forgiving crop you'll ever grow. Most people assume beans belong in spring. Not necessarily. In fact, beans often perform better when planted into warm June soil because they germinate fast instead of sitting in cold, wet ground where seeds can rot. Many varieties go from seed to harvest in just 50 to 60 days. That's fresh beans on your table before summer is over. The secret to bigger harvests is simple, consistent moisture. A single week of drought during flowering can cut your harvest dramatically. Keep the soil evenly moist, and they'll keep pumping out pods for weeks. Want even more? Plant a second round about 2 weeks after the first. Instead of one giant harvest, you'll get a steady supply all season. But the next crop solves a problem almost every gardener has experienced at least once, even if they didn't realize what caused it. Number 10, cucumbers. Cucumbers were practically made for June. They love heat, warm soil, and long sunny days, which is exactly what June delivers. That's why cucumber seeds planted now often germinate in less than a week and quickly catch up to plants started much earlier. Most varieties are ready to harvest in about 50 to 70 days. But here's where many gardeners accidentally ruin their crop. Inconsistent watering. Ignore watering for a few hot days, and an entire harvest can become bitter. If you've ever bitten into a cucumber that tasted surprisingly harsh, that's usually the reason. The fix is simple. Keep the soil consistently moist and add a layer of mulch to help hold that moisture in. Better yet, grow them on a trellis. You'll get cleaner fruit, fewer disease problems, and easier harvesting. And speaking of crops that get dramatically better under the right conditions, the next one actually becomes sweeter as the weather gets colder. Number 9, beets. If you've only harvested beets in summer, you've never tasted what beets are actually supposed to taste like. When you plant beets in June, they mature just as cooler fall weather arrives. And that's when something remarkable happens. As temperatures drop, beet roots naturally become sweeter. The result is a richer, more flavorful harvest than you typically get in summer. There's one mistake to avoid, though. Each beet seed actually contains multiple seeds. So if you leave every seedling in place, they end up competing for space and never reach their full potential. Once they sprout, thin them out and give each root room to grow. And don't forget about the tops. Young beet greens are delicious and give you a second harvest from the same planting. But if you think beets improve in cool weather, wait until you hear about the next crop, because most gardeners plant it at the completely wrong time. Number 8. Broccoli. I know what you're thinking. Broccoli? In June? Actually, this is where most gardeners get it wrong. They treat broccoli like a spring crop and then wonder why the heads turn loose, bitter, or bolt before harvest. The smarter approach is to plant for fall. Start broccoli in June, let it build strong roots through summer, and it will form its heads when cooler temperatures arrive. That's when broccoli tastes its best. Sweeter, tighter, and far better than what you'll find at the grocery store. The key is choosing a fast-maturing variety and giving it enough time to establish before fall. Do that, and you'll harvest premium broccoli right when most gardens are slowing down. I didn't discover fall-planted broccoli until my 4th year of gardening, and I'm still annoyed I waited that long. Do that, and you'll harvest premium broccoli right when most gardens are slowing down. Now, pause for a second. Have you noticed what's happening here? Zucchini, corn, beans, cucumbers. Those were June crops because they love the heat. But broccoli, beets, and everything coming up next? These aren't really summer crops at all. They're fall crops, and June just happens to be the exact right moment to start them. Most gardeners never make this connection. They think of June as a deadline. The smart ones treat it as a launch pad for the most flavorful part of their entire growing year. Keep that in mind as we go through the next few, because it explains everything. Number 7. Cabbage. Fall cabbage might be one of the most underrated crops in the entire garden. Most people never think to start it in June. That's a mistake. When planted now, cabbage spends summer building strength and forms its heads as temperatures cool in early fall. And cabbage loves cool weather. The heads grow firmer, denser, and far more flavorful than those forced through summer heat. One important tip: choose faster maturing varieties. Many late-season types simply don't have enough time to finish before cold weather arrives. Start them in containers, protect young seedlings from intense summer heat, then transplant them later in the season. The cool autumn air will do the rest. We're halfway through the list, and we still haven't hit the most surprising one. Most gardeners would never guess what earns the number 1 spot. Keep watching. But if you think cabbage improves when temperatures drop, the next crop undergoes an even bigger transformation after its first frost. Number 6. Kale. If you've only eaten kale harvested in summer, you've never tasted kale at its best, because something incredible happens when cold weather arrives. After the first frost, kale begins converting some of its starches into sugars as a natural defense against the cold. The leaves become noticeably sweeter and far less bitter. That's why experienced gardeners often prefer fall kale over summer kale. Plant it in June, and by the time cooler temperatures arrive, you'll have large, productive plants ready for months of harvest. And unlike many vegetables, kale doesn't quit after a few pickings. Keep harvesting the outer leaves, and the plant keeps producing. One planting can feed you for an incredibly long time. But the next crop might be the biggest surprise on this list, because most gardeners never realize how easy it is to grow their own endless supply. Number 5. Carrots. Most gardeners think June is too late for carrots. In reality, it sets you up for one of the best harvests of the entire year. Here's why. Carrots planted now mature as cooler fall weather arrives. And just like kale and beets, something remarkable happens when temperatures begin to drop. The roots become sweeter, noticeably sweeter. The biggest challenge isn't growing carrots. It's getting them started. Their tiny seeds need consistent moisture to germinate. If the soil surface dries out, many seedlings never make it through. Keep the seedbed evenly moist, thin the seedlings once they emerge, and give the roots room to develop. By fall, you'll be pulling crisp, sweet carrots straight from the ground. But the next crop is even more surprising, because most gardeners have never grown it, and many have never even tasted it. Number 4. Parsnips. I ignored parsnips for 6 years. The first time I actually tasted one after a hard frost, I genuinely couldn't believe it came from my own garden. So this might be the most overlooked crop on the entire list. In fact, many gardeners have never grown parsnips. Some have never even tasted one. That's a shame, because parsnips reward patience better than almost any vegetable you can plant. June is the perfect time to start them because they need a very long season to reach their full potential. And trust me, you don't want to rush them. The real magic happens after they've been exposed to several hard frosts. That's when the roots develop an incredibly rich flavor that's sweet, nutty, and unlike anything you'll find in a grocery store. The best part? Once they're established, they require very little attention. Plant them now, forget about them for months, and harvest them when most gardeners think the season is over. At this point, you may have noticed something surprising. Almost every crop near the top of this list has one thing in common. They actually improve after summer ends, which means most gardeners are focused on the wrong season entirely. We're almost at number 1, and I promise, most of you won't see it coming. And speaking of crops that depend on timing, the next one can be a complete success or a complete failure based almost entirely on when you plant it. Number 3, pumpkins. Most gardeners think growing pumpkins is simple. Plant them in spring and harvest them in fall. Done. Not quite. When it comes to pumpkins, timing is everything. Plant too early, and your pumpkins can mature long before you actually need them. Plant too late, and frost may end the season before they ever finish developing. That's why June is the sweet spot. The warm soil gets seeds growing fast, and the plants have plenty of time to produce fully mature pumpkins by fall. Want bigger pumpkins? Don't rush the fruit. Let the plant focus on building strong vines and lots of leaves first. A bigger plant almost always leads to a bigger harvest. And if you think timing matters for pumpkins, the next crop takes it to another level. Because if you miss June, you've practically missed your chance for the entire year. Number 2, Brussels sprouts. This is the one crop on this list where June isn't just a good time to plant. It's the time. Miss this window, and in many climates, you simply run out of season. But here's what makes Brussels sprouts so special. Most people think they don't like them. The truth? Most people have never tasted them at their best. When Brussels sprouts mature during hot weather, they can be bitter, loose, and disappointing. But when they develop slowly and experience the cool temperatures of fall, everything changes. The flavor becomes richer, sweeter, almost nutty when roasted. It's like eating a completely different vegetable. Plant them now, give them time, and let autumn do the hard work. And now for the crop that earns the number 1 spot. Not because it's the biggest producer, but because most gardeners completely misunderstand what it actually wants. Number 1, basil. I know what some of you are thinking. Basil? Out of everything on this list? Yes, because basil may be the most misunderstood plant in the home garden. I killed basil 3 springs in a row before I realized I was just planting it too early. Most gardeners plant it too early, watch it struggle, and assume they're doing something wrong. The reality is much simpler. Basil loves heat. Real heat. Not cool spring nights. Not fluctuating temperatures. Heat. That's why June is when basil stops surviving and starts thriving. Seeds germinate quickly, plants explode with growth, and a single healthy plant can provide fresh leaves for months. Here's the secret that separates average basil from incredible basil. Keep harvesting it. Every time you trim the growing tips, the plant responds by becoming bushier and producing even more leaves. The result? A larger plant, a longer harvest, and more basil than most families know what to do with. And unlike many garden crops, basil starts paying you back fast. Plant it in June, keep it trimmed, remove flower buds when they appear, and you'll be harvesting armfuls of fresh herbs right up until frost. The reason basil takes the number 1 spot isn't because it's the highest yielding crop. It's because no plant on this list gives more harvest for less space, less effort, and less money. The biggest lesson from this list isn't which crops to plant. It's that June isn't the end of the gardening season. In many ways, it's the beginning of the best harvest you'll grow all year. Most gardeners stop planting now. The smartest gardeners are just getting started. Here's what I want to know. Which crop on this list surprised you the most? Was it the basil? The parsnips? Or did something else catch you off guard? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this countdown, subscribe for more practical gardening tips that help you grow more while spending less. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.